Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Drive at Wild Earth. To our regular viewers, welcome back, and to new viewers, welcome. Big welcome from the whole team at Wild Earth. Just a reminder that what you're seeing is live, and everything you're seeing is in real time. Really bad week, but Eugene's working on the problem, and hopefully we can get her back up and running. Just a quick introduction to myself. I'm new in this job. This is my first time, and this is actually my trial drive. I'm hoping to join the team here at Wild Earth. So please bear with me. I don't know this reserve, I don't know the animals, and I know that some of the regular viewers have a much better grasp and handle on the animals that we're going to be seeing. I'm going to be getting a little bit of help every now and again from Andrew, just because I don't really know the roads here at all, or where I'm allowed to go and where I'm not. As you can see at the moment, we actually have a wonderful view for the first time today of the newest lion cubs, the newest addition to the Styx Pride. Okay, we've got a wonderful view here of the cubs. Just so that you guys know, the reason that we don't want to get any closer is because these guys are actually very new. We're guessing somewhere in the region of 3 months old. And one of the important things about guiding is that if you push too hard, it's not ethical for a start, because we're in their home, but also you're going to make the animals skittish and wary of cars. So when cubs are this young, we're going to give them a little bit of space, a little bit of distance, but we've still got a nice view of them playing, learning and gathering their coordination. Very contented family. Earlier this morning we actually had our first view of them coming up from the dam, and I know a lot of viewers were very excited to see them. We also had the two big Matimba males, the ginger male and hairy belly, but they seem to have made their way off, or they've moved somewhere deeper into the bush to find some shade. These guys have spent a relaxing day just hanging out here in the bush. Very cute. Alright, so with lion cubs like this is actually sort of getting towards the time where they're going to start coming out with their mothers more and more often. Any younger than this, and they'll actually be hidden away in den sites, which can be anything from rocky outcrops to thick bushes, and the mother actually keeps them there for a while. It's safer for them while they're still too small to keep up with them while they're hunting. So she'll return to the den site every now and again, give them some food, and then move on and hunt some more with the rest of the pride. You won't be able to see them very clearly, but in a second I'll reposition so that you'll be able to see a proud mom and proud auntie, who are flat cat, just they're just hiding just behind those bushes. If you're lucky, you might. There's actually 3 of these cubs. I can only see 2 at the moment. I think the third might have moved around or in the shade. It's very nice to finally see them on Djuma. Now this is a very, very risky period in a young lion's life. They're not always with their mom, and there's a lot of threats out there. The hyena den is not that far from our position at the moment, and any hyena that comes across them, or leopard or cheetah, any predator that finds them without their mother, there's a very good chance that they could be killed. And that's just purely due to competition. The other predators get rid of them as a way of ensuring the success of their own youngsters and their own offspring. I've also heard of cases of buffalo when they find undertended lion cubs. They also might stomp on them. So mortality rate is very high, but hopefully mommy's going to be a good mom, choose nice hiding places. Oh, cute. Look at the little cub, got its siblings' ears. Ah, there's 3. There's the other one. Alright, bear with me for a few seconds. I'm just going to try and get us out of the bush. We're in quite thick bush at the moment. I'm going to try and get out with a minimal amount of disturbance for the lions and see if we can reposition a little bit, just to get a different view. Relaxed again after the energy starters. We'll just try and get ourselves out of it. Might have to do a 20-point. About any damage that we're doing to the environment. Just to let you know, saplings, they will grow back after, they won't be permanently damaged, so you don't need to worry too much about the impact that the car is having on the environment. Offspring of the other one. It's known as allo suckling. Unfortunately, the one female hasn't had a litter at the same time, so there'll only be one food source for these 3. But I'm not sure which one of these is the mother at the moment. If they roll over or choose to move, then we might get a better idea. We just need to see which one is lactating. You've asked if the 2 Styx ladies are related, the 2 adult females. Donna, yes, they would be. It's very, very unusual to find unrelated females sort of moving together and working together in a pride. Typically they will be sisters, or at least in some way closely related. All right, and that's nature's way of propagating the genes that they have. They look after each other, and they look after each other's cubs, and they provide for each other's cubs, and in that way their own genetic line is actually being passed on. So as far as I know, I'm not familiar with the animals, but most likely they will be related. It's always interesting to look at genetics and how know which one the father is, and they can move through the territories without risk of one of the males killing their cubs, because the male might think that it's their own offspring. And what you'll find when you see male coalition of lions, so often they'll move together in groups. 2 is always better than 1. 5 is even better, because you stand a much better chance of competing with opposing males. But what you'll see with lions is that they all get a chance, well, there's a good chance they'll have an opportunity to mate with an available female. So you'll find with male coalitions, they don't tend to be as strict in terms of relations. I know of coalitions with cousins and even unrelated males forming coalitions. What's very common in small reserves is, because the lions can't move and breed in the way, look for new breeding opportunities, they actually the management actually has to control which lions are where. So if you've got an older male who's going to reach sexual maturity and be ready to breed, you might need to move that male to a different reserve and swap him out, where he'd have different and fresh genetic mating opportunities. So what I've seen done in my experience is, when they've decided to move a new male into a different area, they've actually darted one male and then put the new male with that male and rubbed a scent cloth over each lion's face and then onto the other one, just so that they get the scent. So when they wake up in an unfamiliar place with each other, they actually form quite a unique coalition, even though they're not related. In contrast, if you look at something, if they form a coalition, again, always to their advantage. It means a better chance of having a successful hunt, better chance of defending your territory from marauding males. In cheetah coalitions, generally there is one who is slightly more dominant, and he will be the For that reason, cheetah males tend to be a little bit more picky about their coalition mates. So they will choose somebody, they will stay in a coalition with somebody who is their brother, or at the furthest stretch, maybe a cousin, because then even if they're not getting that opportunity to mate, their genetic line is still being passed on through their relative. Of course, that's just a general rule. There are no rules when it comes to wild animals. They don't read the textbooks. They don't know that we put these rules upon them, so there will always be exceptions to that. But that in itself is one of the most wonderful things about working out in an area like this and getting a chance to sit and observe these guys as we are, completely alone and undisturbed, because then you actually get a chance to observe behavior that you won't ever read about in books. So now I have a question for you guys. Would you like to stay with this family for a little bit longer? It's still quite warm out here. It's around, I think, 22 degrees centigrade, which is around 72 Fahrenheit. So they're going to stay here for a little bit longer out in the sun, and then probably only get active a little bit later when it starts getting dark. So they're going to stay much like this. It is very thick in here, so we haven't got the best view. So let me know on #SafariLive or questions at WildEarthTV if you'd like to stay with them a little bit longer, or if you'd like to move and look for something else. Before dark. And the reason for that is just ethical guiding procedures. We don't really want to put a spotlight on these cubs, not at this age. They're still a little bit too young to be harassed in that kind of way, so we won't be putting a dam. Ooh. Bit of a sneeze. Oh, we've got a wonderful shot of a cub just behind that branch, unfortunately, but just having a little bit of a nibble at the branch. Now, this kind of behavior is very common in seeing the learning. Okay, guys, I understand that most of you would actually like to stay and see the cubs for a little bit longer. I know that this is very exciting, especially for regular viewers who've known of the existence of these cubs, but perhaps only seeing them for the first time now. Just bear in mind that I can't necessarily push much further forward without disturbing this family. So the view that you might have might be a bit obstructed by bushes and trees. I'm just not willing to push any closer. I don't want to disrupt these guys, not at this stage. Ashley from the UK, welcome and thank you very much for your question. Ashley would like to know if the cub is chewing on the branch because it's teething, and she wants to know if cubs have milk teeth in the same way that humans have milk teeth that fall out. The answer is yes, they do. They'll start getting their adult sets of teeth sort of towards around, as far as I know, 6 months that they start seeing that. So potentially might be teething, but I think, in my opinion, unlikely at this point. Probably just chewing because he's exploring, or he or she is exploring new avenues and new options and just wants to know what it tastes like and what it feels like and how solid it is. It's also a very important mechanism for strengthening those jaw muscles. All right, the lions are going to rely very heavily on the powerful jaw and strong paws, and they have to actually work up to get those muscles nice and strong for when they're big and hunting for themselves. We've actually been fortunate enough, where I've been working in the last few years, we acquired a lion skull. The lion died naturally, he was killed by other males, and we had a look at his skull. And it's incredible to see the grooves and ridges on the skull itself. And that's purely for muscle attachment, okay? It's incredibly powerful muscles that are joining the jaw and controlling the jaw. So you see that all along, and you'll see the very powerful shoulders and neck of the lion, all connected to the muscle attachment points, so that they've got that real bite force that they're going to need to kill something. What you'll also see, what I've noticed, is they're very large holes in the skull, and those are actually pathways for nerves, all right, because they need to have a lot of sensitivity in terms of their whiskers sensing, feeling their way around, and they're very reliant on those areas. So there's a lot of sensory and motor coordination running backwards and forwards between the face and the brain. Very interesting to see and very interesting to compare with other predator skulls that have slightly different methods of hunting. Okay, so we've still got a bit of cub acrobatics going on there. A couple of pull-ups. This is still more entertaining than the brothers and sisters who aren't being much fun at the moment. So Pamela on Twitter, welcome and thank you for your question. Pamela would like to know how much lion cubs weigh. In my experience, I've been fortunate enough occasionally to be hands-on with some lion cubs. They are a lot stockier than you expect them to be, especially at this age. When they're born, they're very, very tiny. They need a lot of looking after, so you're looking at probably maybe 100 grams. I'm not entirely sure how to convert that to an imperial system, but yeah, we're looking at, for these guys, probably, I would say at a guess, maybe about 6 kilograms, no, maybe about 4 kilograms, but that is a guess. I wouldn't have exact numbers. What is amazing to me always is how incredibly rapidly animals like this can grow. Their mother's milk is very, very nutritious, provides a lot of what they need, and they grow incredibly rapidly on it. And that's necessary for their survival. They need to get big and strong as quickly as possible. There we go, he's coming out to say hello. Climbing all over mommy or auntie. I think we have mommy. Definitely. Oh, no. It's not that keen. Cub's not letting go. Okay, he gave it a good go. Unfortunately, moved right into the bushes there. But yeah, therefore this lioness is definitely mom. And the cub came up. I'm not sure if you guys could pick up on the little sounds that the cub was making. It's actually making tiny little growling sounds, just as a way of begging. It's begging for food, basically. Mommy, feed me, I'm hungry. Let me suckle. All right, she seems to have settled more comfortably. And I think cub has actually got a good position there. Having a nice feed. Okay. I just want to show you guys quickly, if I can, managed to get a picture up of the lion skull, just to show you guys what I was talking about earlier. I'm not sure if that sun is going to get it in, but here we have a nice picture of a lion skull. And you can actually, there's a groove all along the top here, and a nice ridge, and the muscles attach here, and then you've got very powerful points here, around here, for the muscles to attach to, and then the holes that I was talking about for the nerve channels, that's actually down here, around here. So passing through, leading directly to the brain, there's also a hole here that travels into the orbital socket, so feeding into the eye, but also feeding nerves down to around here, around these areas, the lips, the nose, all of the facial muscles that they need to actually go about their day-to-day business. And what you'll often see with animals is at the top here of their mouths, they have what's known as the organ of Jacobson, or the vomeral nasal organ. And that's, if I could describe it in sort of less scientific terms, it's almost like they can taste what they smell. So what you'll get them doing is what's known as the phlegm and grimace, where they pull their lips up, they make funny faces. You might have seen it if you in an area with cows or horses. You might have seen horses or cows do that, and they pull it up, and that's actually opening up the passages so that they can draw the scent in and place it on that that organ, and that will actually transmit the sense up into the brain, and they can interpret it from there. It's something that we as humans no longer have in a functional manner. We've actually compromised or evolution has led to the fact that our sense of smell and hearing is not quite the same, as we're no longer as reliant on it as other animals are. So we no longer have much use for that, and we've given up those senses in the way that they would have been, because we need more space for thinking. A little bit more intellectual, but more brain space, less brain occupied by interpreting smells and hearing. Okay, thank you. Okay, the second cub's also come and had a look. We actually saw this earlier this morning as well. Often when one cub goes in to feed, the others want to join. Yeah, mommy's rolling. From the brief look that I've had at the lionesses, just at the dark patches on their noses and at the state of their canines, I'd say that these two females are they're not young. This is not their first litter of cubs. So hopefully it gives these three a better chance. They've had some practice, they've had some experience, they know what to avoid and what to look after, what to look out for in terms of caring for their cubs and keeping them safe. So hopefully you guys will be able to follow on and watch the progress as they grow. There you go. Isn't he cute? He or she. Trying to push his way in there. Picture of contentment. Alright guys, I think it's time for us to leave this little family in peace. Let them enjoy a bit of late afternoon serenity. I promise you we will try and come back to them, have a look around, but let's see if they move towards the dam. As I said, if it gets a little bit too late and it gets too dark, then we won't be able to shine on them with a spotlight, but we'll come back later, we'll swing by later, see what's happening on this side. Alright. So for now, I think what we're going to do is you're going to come and explore the reserve with me. It's as new to me as it is to some of you, so we'll see where we end up, and hopefully we can find something else interesting to look at and see. And if this knobthorn lets go of me. Nice hooked thorns. You catch onto everything. There you go, you can have a look. They've managed to grab several pieces of my hair and a piece of my elbow. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Ooh. Sorry, lions. New car. All right. Sorry. Make our way out as quietly as possible. me a little bit, especially now crashing through the bush. I promise you I'll try and talk a little bit louder, try and make things a little bit clearer. One of the big timber males. Obviously I'm not entirely sure which at the moment, I don't know them terribly well, but he is flat cat, sleeping, also enjoying a nice afternoon rest. Oh, we've got the two here. Okay. Nice and relaxed. So I've been told that Lions of Sabi Sands has a little bit of a correction for me, and thank you very much for that. He said that the lioness in this case is actually close to 4 years old, or just turned 4 years old, and this is in fact her first litter. So I stand corrected, and thank you for that. Hopefully get to know the animals a little bit better. Here we go, fast asleep. Now these guys can actually spend a fair amount of time, close to 20 hours a day, if necessary, sleeping, or at least dozing, catnapping, nice and relaxed. All right, and there's a reason for that. They've got very large bodies. These males can weigh well over 200 kilograms, which is close to, I suppose, about 450 pounds. So they need a lot of energy to keep themselves going. And when they actually do hunt and chase, it takes a lot out of them, even in terms of heat production and overheating, which is often why male lions in particular will rely on the females to hunt. But that doesn't mean that they're incapable of hunting, and often a pride with a couple of big males will be able to take down some of the bigger prey, the buffalo, the giraffe. But typically, what I've often seen happen is the lionesses, especially if they kill something small like an impala, the males will actually come in, eat most of the meal, and the lionesses will just carry on hunting, especially with small meals. But it still works to the lioness's advantage, actually. Oh, nice, rolled over in the sun, passed out. But these guys will be good protection, especially for these females with their young cubs. If a threat comes around, something like a hyena, which might be brave in challenging a lioness, but definitely won't be taking on two male lions. And I've seen it before, actually, where the lionesses had killed a zebra and they were chased by a group of hyena. And I'm not sure exactly where the male was at the time, but he obviously picked up on the sounds of the chase. And he actually turned and came sprinting back to come and help the lionesses and actually chase the hyenas away. And the lionesses were able to finish their meal in peace. So in a way, having a big male to protect them works out in the end, even if he does sometimes take the lion's share of the meal. So it's useful having these big guys around. I believe these are the Matimba males. In terms of identifying lions, if we can have a look maybe closer at the whisker spots. In the research facility that I've worked at in the past, we used to make ID kits for lions, and what we actually looked at was the spots of the whiskers. You see those dark spots around where his whiskers are coming out? Right, those will not change throughout a lion's life. You might get scars. Sometimes you get a nice big nick in the ear that you can use to identify them, but often scars and something like that will heal away. It can't always be the most reliable way of IDing which lion you're looking at. Okay, and sometimes getting to know the identity of the animal is very important in terms of management decisions, especially on smaller reserves where they have to keep the genetic stock fresh. It's important to know which lions are mating with which lions so that you can have a little bit of extra control around that. Here we go. Okay. Foot in the air. Very happy lion. Alright guys, I don't think these two boys are going to be doing anything for a while. I think that they are going to be flat cat until it gets a little bit cooler. So I think what we'll do now is we'll make our way out of the block and we'll have a look for something else interesting and new to look at and learn about, and then potentially come back a little bit later when things are a bit cooler and they might start being a bit more active. Okay, so let's make our way out. Sort of between two roads at the moment, so I've got to choose my way out carefully. Cheers, boys. To let you guys know, I do have Brent in the back with me. He's just helping me out, learning a little bit of the roads.
Hi everyone.
Brent says hi. Hopefully if Wendy is up and running in a later stage, we'll be able to get James out and about as well this afternoon. Yeah, did see his shadow on the back of the car. Guys, in front of us we have a herd of impala just in the bushes over there in the direction that I'm heading, so I'll probably stick around. Potentially this is actually the same herd that we saw this morning, and one of the female lionesses actually went to start hunting them, but unfortunately the cubs made it very, very difficult because they kept following her and calling, begging for milk, and in the end they gave the game away and the hunt was unsuccessful. There you can see them to my left. to the left. Careful, guys. Just choose the easiest way out of this path. Once I'm back on the road, then I'll give you guys a little bit of an introduction as to who I am and what my background is. I know especially for the regular viewers, you know the presenters, the current presenters very well. So I'll give you a bit more of a general introduction to who I am and my experience in the bush. Another game drive viewer coming along, probably to have a look at the lions, possibly. All right, got a nice group of buffalo males over there. If you can just pan to my right. There we go. Big group of buffalo boys. Very typical to find the buffalo like this, safely ensconced, nice and cool in the river. You can see a lot of them are caked in mud, and that's very usual for buffalo and other animals such as rhino and so on. What they'll do is the animal will go and lie in a nice mud wallow, have a good roll around, and it acts as a fantastic cooling mechanism, but it also traps all of those pesky ticks on the bodies and helps them rub it off. So they'll cake the mud on and then go and find a nice scratching post and rub it off. And when you're walking through the bush or traveling through the bush, you can actually see on freshly rubbed rubbing posts, such as low stumps or something like that, you'll very often in fresh mud you'll find ticks trapped there that have been scraped off. So a very good, nice way of relieving yourself from one of those itches. For those of you who missed the morning drive, I was recounting a story an experience of mine that is probably my most exciting buffalo experience to date. I was traveling around the reserve and I happened to bump into a herd of buffalo at the waterhole, and I noticed that one female in the back was acting quite strangely, and as it turns out she was giving birth. Now typically when the female buffalo give birth, they find a nice thick patch of bush to go and hide in, and they have their baby on their own. And this was actually the first time I saw the reason behind that. I happened to see her water break, and I could see she was struggling, lying down, straining a little bit, and another young female went up to investigate. And to this day, I don't know exactly what happened. I understand it's some kind of pregnancy hysteria. It's connected to the hormones that they smell during the birthing process. But what actually happened is that the female started headbutting and putting her horns in the stomach of the pregnant female with going into labor, pushing her to her feet and actually chasing her around. And the big bull that was with him, I don't know necessarily that he was trying to help, but he was trying to get in the middle, see what was happening. And before I knew it, I actually had an entire herd of slightly hysterical buffalo chasing this poor female round and round. I had to tap the side of the car just to remind them that I was there because they were so distracted and so overexcited by this female's experience. You'd be happy to know that I did go back the next day. The calf and the female were absolutely fine. So she stayed separate from the herd for a while, maybe a little bit traumatized by her experience, but she was safely reared, that calf. So just a very interesting animal behavior, that something that I've never seen and I've certainly never read about. One of the wonderful things in this job is that you never know what you're going to see. Okay, good boys. All right. Moving off into the dam. Okay. All right, everybody. Not enough buffalo. Let's go see what else we can find. There is another safari vehicle just ahead of me, so we might stop and say hello and just let them know that the lions are still there. It's nice for us as well. It means that somebody else will have eyes on them, so if they get up and move, we might be able to find them later. Just moving the car out of low range. I had it in low range just to keep the revs down when I was with the lions. Thanks, how are you? Yeah, still a pansy there. Yeah, you can follow our tracks in. Okay. You'll find them. Chop. Have a good afternoon. Okay. Hope we find it. Enjoy. Oh, I think so. They were flat cat. Enjoy. Okay. Just keeping up good relations with the neighbors. We're all working together for the same thing, looking after the animals and giving some people some fantastic experiences on this reserve. Okay, let's head on. Cheers, boys. Buffalo. Have a good afternoon. Nigel on Twitter, thank you for your question. Welcome to the Sunset Drive. So Nigel would like to know how far these bulls are from the lions. The answer is not far at all. Probably maybe 500 meters, probably a little bit less. Not sure exactly, about less than half a mile from the lions. Okay, so there's a chance that they might bump into them. Whether or not the lions will go for the opportunity to hunt, possibly if the buffalo approach and don't catch wind of the lions, if the lions are sitting downwind of them, and there's a possibility that the lions might give it a go. So I'm sure we'll hear updates from the vehicle that's with the lions at the moment. So just to give you guys a little bit of general background on who I am and who's driving you around this afternoon. As I said before, my name is Jamie and I was born in Johannesburg and grew up visiting the bush whenever I possibly could on family holidays. And my grandfather actually used to be a game warden for a living. So he was sort of my family idol. The rest of my family love the bush, but it's more of a holiday for them. But for us, it's our life and our passion. So in case you're picking up a little bit of an accent, I am South African, I promise you. But I did spend 3 years in the UK. I was studying law at Cambridge. You can see that that endeavour worked out really well in terms of my legal career, because here I am, working back in the place that I love. Very fortunate to have had that opportunity, but the UK just wasn't the place for me. It wasn't right for me. So I'm back in the bush. I returned to South Africa in 2012. Spent a brief time working on a reserve before I went to the UK. And then after that, I moved back here, did my guides training course, and I've been working at a research facility since then. It's a fantastic opportunity to really spend some time with the animals. You know, we've been through 12-week periods with just sitting with the lions morning and afternoon, same lions, and you learn an incredible amount, which is an opportunity that I've been really grateful to have, and I feel that I've learned a lot from. Okay, going through a bit of a dip now. Toronto, hi and welcome to the Sunset Drive. Lynn wants to know what areas that I've worked in South Africa in the past and what has been my most frightening experience so far. Lynn, I worked initially in an area that is the Green Kalahari. It's known as the Green Kalahari. It's around the Koranenberg Mountains, so it's still in South Africa, but the southern section of the Kalahari. And then for the last 3 or so years, I've been living not that far from here, actually, as the crow flies, just outside of Hoedspruit. So the Lowveld area, very similar setup, very similar vegetation, but obviously with its own unique differences. Then, in terms of my most frightening experience so far, it's a difficult question, I think, for me. I think probably the closest I've ever come to having a serious situation was I had a elephant bull in must, which, for people who aren't so sure, must is actually a time in an elephant's life when they have very high testosterone levels, and they tend to be not necessarily more aggressive, but they certainly want to show a little bit more of their dominance. And he moved very purposefully towards the car. I don't think in any way was a serious charge. He was just showing me who was boss. And you know, often people refer to mock charges. It's not a mock charge. He wasn't showing me warning signs. He was just letting me know that he was bigger. But unfortunately, I had a young student on the back. She didn't understand, and I was actually talking to somebody else at the time. Didn't realize she wasn't on my vehicle. She was in the vehicle behind. And she tried to jump out of the car and run away. So I think that was probably, luckily, the person sitting next to her managed to grab her, and as soon as I saw what was going on, I could talk her down. But I think that's probably at least the closest I've ever come to having a serious incident with some of my guests. Definitely something that everybody learned from, including myself, and fortunately no harm done. Other than that, I've had a couple of interesting charges, warning signs from quite a few animals, but you know, these things are not necessarily so much scary as a really important learning curve. You just get to know a little bit more about yourself and about animal behavior. Okay, now the vehicle with guests coming. Just move up volume a little bit. Hello, hello. good?
Yeah. You're having fun?
I am having a wonderful time.
What is there? Did you see anything?
Yeah, the lions are still...
We're just between them.
Yeah.
With the babies? Further down.
Yes, with the little ones. They were still Lalapanzi there when we left, so hopefully they're still hanging around for you guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Is that the Bible of animals?
It is indeed.
That's a Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, shop. Have a good afternoon. Always a great experience meeting new people. It's always fantastic fun because no matter how different and vast the personalities are that you meet, you always find that when you're guiding and you're meeting other guides, you have that common connection and it's based around the love of the bush, and you always have something to chat about and get on well with them. We have a zebi up to my left, he'll make his way around. A zebra. Alright, so the zebra that we've just see disappearing into the back there, that to me, throughout my entire childhood, I always knew as a Burchell zebra. The official name now is the plain zebra. Alright, there's a lot of standardization going on because with animals, there's always a lot of different common names throughout the world. There he's disappearing off into the bush. So this is the more common species of zebra. They've tried to standardize the name, so it's become the plain zebra. And yes, he's completely vanished, but quite clearly identifiable if you're looking at them. All right, the stripes extend all the way down the legs as opposed to the other species in South Africa, the mountain zebra, the Cape mountain zebra, which is a lot more endangered. Stripes extend all the way down, and they also have what are known as shadow stripes in between the black stripes, especially very visible on the rump, just slightly paler brown stripes in between on the white. Ooh, this is a popular route today. How's it? Yeah. Good, thanks. I'm Jason. How's it? Jamie. Nice to meet you. Okay. Yes. Bye, have a good afternoon. Hopefully making some new friends. Just bear with me a second, guys. I've got some nice tracks here. Okay, let me see if I can maybe get into a position that you guys can see them. That's going to put my shadow in the way.
You're going to have to give me quite a bit of space.
Okay.
Tracks.
Right. And it's just giving me some pointers as to how to give him a little bit more space so maybe you guys can get a look at these tracks.
Are you ready?
Alright, so what we're actually looking at, let me just hop out of the vehicle and I'll give you guys a little bit of a demonstration. Okay, so over here, what we've actually got are the lion's tracks from this morning. And they were moving towards the dam and then moving off again. And I know that these are the lions that we've just seen because over here, we've got tiny, tiny little tracks. Right, I'm not sure how well you can see, but I've circled the little footprint. Tiny little cub tracks moving down. And then over here, we've got the adult lions also walking down this road. All right, when you've got tiny little cub tracks like this, if it was on its own, maybe a slightly different shape, then we're looking at something like a female leopard, right? You do get female leopards, adult female leopards that are very small, and they leave tracks roughly the same size, maybe a little bit bigger. But if you see it on its own, then it's not going to be a lion cub, all right? They don't travel alone. They don't move long distances on their own. It's next to a nice adult lion track like this, then we know what it is. And we know that it's a lion cub. All right, I have a question for some of the regular viewers. Guys, I would like you to please tell me two of the main differences between a big cat track and something like a hyena or a wild dog. Just like to know some of the differences. We've been lucky enough now that maybe the lights, the sun's gone a little bit lower, so we've got some nice shadows. And tracking is always an interesting experience. You can learn a great deal from it. So I could tell you potentially, if you spend a lot of time tracking, I know that these tracks are not super fresh. All right, that's because I'm looking at the edges. They've been slightly blurred. This is a main road, so they will have been covered with dust. It also helps that I know when the lions were seen this morning. But when you're looking at tracks and you're not quite sure, what I often found useful in the beginning...
Just a bit louder.
Yeah. What I found useful in the beginning was to actually step next to the track and see what my footprint looks like in the substrate, because I know exactly when I stood there, so I can see how clear the lines are, and then you can compare it to the lion track and have a look, all right? Nice soft sand like this leaves very clear lines, so I know that these tracks are not super, super fresh. Okay, I'm gonna hop in the vehicle. I love tracking because it actually tells you a story. Even if you're not necessarily seeing the animal, you're leaving the evidence behind and you're having a look at what else there is to see. And most important thing about tracking, don't just look at the one track. You're looking at everything around it, because often the evidence is around. With something like a porcupine, you might see the track and be a bit stumped, but nothing else leaves thin lines where the quills have actually dragged along behind it. So a wonderful way of the bush actually telling you a story about what's happened there. Okay, let's move on. We know which way these lions have gone, and we're going to head off, explore new territory. To new areas of reserves. It's always a fantastic experience for me as well, just to see the differences, the small differences in the vegetation, the bird life, the mammal life. Everything has its own subtle differences. And there's a special smell at this time of year in the bush. It's dry and dusty, but in a kind of fresh, clean way, if I could describe it that way. One of my favorite smells. And summer brings a whole different rain this time of evening. You get this fresh summer smells of the flowers, the rain, the smell of the wet dirt. Totally different experience. have some answers now about the question that I asked you guys about how you tell the difference between the big cat pads, the leopards and the lions, versus something like hyenas and dogs. So Tom in Virginia, absolutely right. You will see the claws on something like hyena, especially when it's in nice soft sand. The other big crucial difference is the back pad. All right, in cats such as lions, leopards, cheetah, you've got 3 lobes at the back of the pad. I'm just going to look for a picture while I talk to you guys. Whereas with something like hyena and wild dog, you've actually only got 2 lobes. Let me just get my mammal book. All right, be careful with claws, because there are situations where you will be able to see a lion's claws, especially when they're soft mud or when they're taking off for a run or a pounce. Sometimes you get that little extra bit because the claws never retract fully into the sheath. So if it's really soft, deep mud, you might pick up the claw marks. Okay, so just roughly to give you an idea, here we have a track of a hyena. If you look over here, these are the 2 lobes that show through on the track. The same way this big lobe and this lobe here on the side will show on the track. So you'll only really get the imprint of 2. Whereas if we compare that to a lion, this picture's not fantastic. The leopard's a little bit better. Have a look at the lobes here at the back. So when we're talking about the lobes of the pad, the back of the pad, I'm talking about that section here, not the toes. All right. Another point about claws. Cheetah, the claws will show in the track, all right? Cheetah have non-retractable claws. And the reason for that is it actually provides them with a little bit of extra traction. Now, interestingly, with most animals, you'll find that the front foot is much bigger and rounder than the back foot. That's because most animals carry most of their weight on the front of their bodies, or a higher percentage of the weight in the front of their bodies. Strong jaws or trunks, something like an elephant, big round foot, slightly smaller, slightly oblong-shaped back foot. But with cheetah, the opposite is true. And you'll actually see that their back feet are slightly bigger than their front feet, just for that little bit of extra traction. Interesting to compare the different ways that nature has selected for the way that the animal functions and hunts or finds its food. Okay, let's move on, see what else we can find. A lot of you guys were regular followers of the camera at the Djuma waterhole, and there were reports last night of sounds that potentially sounded like a kill, with hyenas rushing around, potential moaning sounds, and some lions, potentially lions feeding or eating. And I know that Joyce in Pennsylvania now is asking about that. Well, welcome, Joyce. As far as I know, I can tell you that Scotty was out this morning having a look around that area. I don't think he picked up anything around there. I do know that he then went on to find the pride of lions that we've just left. So I don't think that they had a kill around there. They probably wouldn't have left as soon as they did. But we have followed up on it, and as far as I know, there was nothing around that area. Okay guys, as you can see over there on my right, got a tiny little steenbokkie, steenbuck, and they're actually one of my favorite antelope. I always enjoy them. Wonderful little jumpers, nice secretive little antelope. Very common to see them on their own, although they do mate for life and they do live in breeding pairs. But when they move about their little territories, they move about and forage and feed on their own. You will occasionally see them next to each other, but we've just got the male here at the moment that I can see, standing nice and still for us. One of my favorite things about steenbok is actually the white patch that's under their tail. Now, a lot of you will know already that a lot of antelope have a very fluffy white underside of their tail, and it works quite well when they're running away from predators. It helps them keep an eye on where the other antelope are. But it also serves a different function that I've noticed, and it's what's known as flash coloration. It's just moving a little bit away from us. I'm going to disappear behind that tree. So if I could sort of explain flash coloration to you. Imagine that you're a predator and you see in black and white. One of the most obvious colors that you see in the bush is white. It shows up very distinctively. So when you see that flash of white, which you will, when a steenbok is alarmed, it's going to lift its tail and it's going to spring away from you. What they actually do is they'll jump a little bit with their tail up, with the white showing, and then they'll stop and they drop their tail. And all of a sudden, your eyes are focused, and it's happened to me before in the bush. Your eyes are focused where you saw that flash of white, but the steenbok has dropped its tail and is a couple of meters away from where you thought it was. Really good way of just buying themselves a little bit of crucial extra time to escape from a predator. Welcome to the Sunset Drive, and thank you for your question. Valerie would like to know how I personally heard about Wild Earth and whether or not I've ever worked with any of the current presenters before. Valerie, I've known about Africam, which was sort of a long-running project that preceded Wild Earth, and I used to entertain myself during the long evenings in the UK when I missed the bush. I used to sit with the webcam up and running just to get the sounds of the bush into my room in the cold, dark UK when I was there. So it sort of extended from there. When Wild Earth started, then I started following their Facebook page and their wildlife cameras. It's something that I really enjoy, and I really appreciate this project because there's something so special, and for me one of the best things about the bush is to actually be able to share it with people. And this is a way. Oh, we've got another steenbokkie on our right. Hello, little one. Little female this time. Here we go. You can see how Steenbok will often hide, rely on their camouflage, stay nice and still until they think that the threat has passed them. Something we also see with leopards. There he goes. There she goes, bouncing away. And can we still see her? Is she gone?
A little bit.
A little bit. Alright, now that we've seen both the male and the female steenbok, you can actually see clearly sexual dimorphism. The male has horns, the female doesn't. Okay, and that's true of some antelope species, but not all of them. So, something like a wildebeest. A wildebeest, both the male and the female have horns. And there's a very clear correlation between the type of habitat that the antelope lives in and whether or not the female will actually have horns. So for an animal that relies on hiding itself and living in thick or dense vegetation, something like a kudu, a nyala, bushbuck, or steenbokkies that hide away, you will find that the female doesn't have horns because she doesn't need them. She doesn't rely on them for defense. She uses her, there she goes running off. She uses them as a way of relying on her camouflage and to hide away from predators rather than standing and fighting. But with animals that live in big herd situations or out in the open, the females will have horns, because in that case they need them to defend themselves and they need them to defend their youngsters, because they can't rely on vegetation in the same way. So there is quite a very strong link between the habitat and whether or not whether the females have horns. The reason that the males will always have horns is because it's a way of, this fly is going to drive me insane. It's a way of competing for females. So they still need it as part of proving that they're the bigger, stronger male, but they don't necessarily, the females won't necessarily have horns. Okay, just to come back to the question I was answering earlier, in terms of if I've worked with any of the presenters before, I haven't. Some of the names are very familiar to me, and I've seen them on camera, but this is the first time that I've met them personally in a working professional environment. I'm very much enjoying the experience so far. I arrived yesterday and it's been a fantastic time. One of my better days in the bush in the last few days. You know, there's never a boring day in the bush, but it's been a wild ride. Fantastic time. This fly is very persistent.
I've got one on me as well.
You also got one.
Yeah.
Keeping us on our toes. Nothing like summer though. In summer you've got flies all over the place. Okay. Beautiful view. Welcome to the Sunset Drive, and thank you for your question. Nigel is comparing the different way that something like cats will drink, where they curl their tongue underneath to draw the liquid into their mouths, or something like a dog that actually laps and pulls the water into their mouth. And Nigel would like to know, how do hyenas drink? Honestly, Nigel, that's the first time I've ever been asked that question, and I actually don't know the answer, but it is something that I'm going to go home and look up. Very interesting. And maybe if you guys at home do know the answer to that question, please let me know. Feel free to tweet your answers at #SafariLive or else send us an email at questions@wildearth.tv and let me know the answer, because I'm just as keen as Nigel to find out what they actually do. Thank you for that question, Nigel. Fantastic. Question from Udo in Germany. Welcome to our Sunset Drive. Thank you for your question as always. Now, Udo wants to know, are the animals able to move from the Sabi Sands, which is the area that we're in now, which is a private concession, and into the Kruger National Park, which I'm sure most of you will know is our biggest national reserve and extends right across into Mozambique and Zimbabwe. Yes, the animals are free to roam where they want to. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for us, all right? There's certain contractual agreements. We have traversing rights over private landowners' land, and we have set boundaries that we must stay in. All right, and that makes sense. It's a landowner's decision. They can choose where to send cars, and you know, it's very much their personal choice as to how many vehicles they have on their reserve. And in terms of protecting the bush, making sure that there's not too much damage or harassment of the animals, not necessarily harassment, but just, you know, people in their space, and it's nice to maybe just keep the numbers down. So unfortunately we have restrictions, but we've got plenty of beautiful land to drive around in and lots of animals to see. It's also a very exciting venture for me to experience this, because the current reserve that I'm living and working at is a wonderful reserve, but it is fenced in, and we know the animals, which has its own advantages and disadvantages. We research them, but it has a whole different level of excitement driving around here and knowing that these animals are traversing enormous areas if they want to and are able to. And you might see a different herd of elephants to the one that you saw yesterday. Very, very exciting experience for me.